Exclusive new audio into Outfront of former President Donald Trump saying that he would have been, quote, very well received by the people rioting at the Capitol on January 6th. Take a listen to this.
But if you look at the real size of that crowd, it was never reported correctly. It's the biggest crowd I've ever spoken in front of by far.
Really?
By far. That went down to that went back to the Washington Monument.
You told them you were going to go up to the Capitol. Were you just...
I was going to, and the Secret Service said, you can't. And then by the time I would have, and then when I got back, I wanted to go back. I was thinking about going back during the problem to stop the problem, doing it myself. Secret Service didn't like that idea too much.
So what?
I could have done that, and you know what? I would have been very well received. Don't forget, the people that went to Washington that day, in my opinion, they went because they thought the election was rigged. That's why they went.
All right, that audio comes from an interview that Trump gave to ABC News chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl, who you heard there asking the questions. He gave that interview to Jonathan Karl just over 2 months after the insurrection. Outfront legal analysts say that what you just heard in that exchange is highly valuable evidence for the prosecution. Our Ryan Goodman predicts that this audio will likely be part of the trial. So we have much more on the legal impact of this exclusive audio. But first, Jonathan Karl is out front. He is the author of the new book, Tired of Winning, Donald Trump and the End of the Grand Old Party. So, Jonathan, you're sharing this exchange with us, and you write in this book that this was an astounding admission. Those are your words by Trump. I mean, he's saying he wanted to go, which is right. This is the whole back and forth, right, over the grabbing the steering wheel incident with Cassidy Hutchinson, but that he wanted to go and that he believed he had control over the crowd.
That he was going to be well received by the people that were attacking the Capitol building, the people that were assaulting police officers, trying to get in to stop that certification of the election, that they would receive him well. So this was an interview I did as part of a long interview for my book, Betrayal. And at the time, that exchange, because there was so much in that interview, didn't quite hit me. First of all, I didn't believe him when he said, I wanted to go. I mean, I never really thought he wanted to go. But then I heard Cassidy Hutchinson testified before the January 6th committee, the whole thing about, how Trump was
berating. Did he lunge for the wheel? And all that?
Or whatever he was doing, pressuring his Secret Service agents, them adamantly refusing, clearly well documented. So I went back and this is an admission that those were absolutely his people, first of all, but also that he had control over those people. And remember, he didn't go up there, and he also didn't do anything to try to get them to stop.
Right, and we all know there were other times when he would try to say that, they weren't his people, yep. Right? Remember in the infamous call with then-Speaker, with Kevin McCarthy, saying, these are your people. Okay, so that audio obviously could now be evidence. Right, it could be evidence in the federal investigation of Trump's efforts to overturn the election. You heard people think that it will be. You write that Trump was, quote, despondent, scared, and seething with rage about another case, the hush money case, into him here in New York. And since then, 2 indictments, Justice Department in Georgia found liable for fraud in his civil trial. You have the entire situation going on in New York, right, with that civil trial as well playing out. Does he realize, John, that he's at real risk of going to jail?
I think that he has come to see that there is absolutely no difference between his presidential campaign and his legal defense. They have merged into one. There are 2 potential paths for Donald Trump, I think, in his mind. He can win back the presidency and do whatever he can to call it all off. Obviously, there's so much he can, it's debatable how much he can do on that front. Right. Or he faces the very real possibility of going to prison. He uses apocalyptic terms to describe this campaign. And it's not so much the impact on the country, it's the impact on him. He calls 2024 the final battle. And I think that's, for him, he really feels it's the final battle. He wins, he's triumphant, or it's devastating.
And, of course, I'm sure he's well aware, right, of that also for some would hearken to Fields of Armageddon. And that's exactly what he's doing. You write about him. That there is now nobody even trying. There were times, right? Remember that infamous op-ed in the New York Times, right? Times when people would say they tried to rein him in. You're saying no one's doing that now. And you write, Trump is more detached from reality than ever and more willing to trash the norms and customs that our system of government needs to survive as a working democracy. Yeah, covered him for many years.
I wrote this for two primary reasons. One is that I think memories have started to fade about what it was like, especially at the end of the Trump presidency, and there's been this effort to try to whitewash it or rewrite that history. But the second is that people don't realize what has happened to Trump since he left the White House. And I do believe that in some sense he has gotten more detached from reality, more willing to trash the customs of American democracy to win, to prevail at all costs. But he did have people around him in that White House who tried to protect him from his own self-destructive influences and tendencies, and to protect the country from those tendencies. Those people are all entirely gone. He will have a team devoted to him. The most important qualification right now to be in a potential Trump administration will be loyalty. And right now, I mean, this is the smallest presidential campaign we've seen of a frontrunner ever, including significantly smaller than what he had in 2016.
I mean, it's pretty stunning when you say this. And when you say frontrunner, he's the frontrunner.
He's absolutely the frontrunner.
It's frontrunner, and then there's, kind of in the distance, DeSantis maybe. The latest poll we have of New Hampshire shows Nikki Haley surging. I mean, up to 20%. Now, that's half of where he is, but it's surge for her, huge surge. Does he see her as a real threat now? Does he see anyone as a true threat?
I think that he thinks that he's got it essentially made. But I think he will look at that poll very closely. A real strong anti-Trump candidate like Christie could have a chance. I do not think that this primary is over. He is absolutely the front runner. People treat him like the presumptive nominee, but I don't think it's actually over.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being here with us. Thanks.
Thank you for having me.